Hi again, everybody. So this is my diagnosis topic week video. I am only going to give a little bit about my actual diagnosis, and then I wanted to actually give some information about diagnosis for everybody. And we need more volunteers so that I can stop coming on here. That would be great. um, my diagnosis, I, I mean, it was delayed, obviously, like everybody else's. But I didn't even really suspect, I guess, that anything was wrong. Um, Obviously, I had the bad pain, crippling pain at 15, probably sooner, but I brushed it off. I was extremely athletic, and I mean, got the same answers as everybody else. Get over it, get up, move on. It's normal. So, eventually at about 16, I got put on birth control because I was having 2 periods a month and crazy mood swings, and my mom couldn't take it anymore. And she took me to the doctor because she couldn't take it. I mean, I have red hair, and my temper was a bit out of control. So at that point, birth control worked fine for me, and I didn't have problems again. Really, I mean, I guess I had really bad migraines in college. I couldn't get out of bed, couldn't get to class for. Didn't associate it with anything, didn't think twice about it. I probably should have, probably could have thought more into it, but I had a scholarship for cheerleading and dance and still played basketball all the time, pushed myself every bit of everything that I could, so wasn't stopping for that, especially since I had supported myself since I was about 15 and couldn't afford to stop. So when I went in the Navy, I think what probably triggered the birth control to stop working, which I would advise to all women in the Navy if you have any problems with endometriosis or pelvic pain, is that when you go through the gas chambers and get all of the shots, which are high in heavy metal toxicities, is that triggers something in your immune system which endometriosis affects. So in turn, what happens is the same things that used to work with you or things that would have worked for you in the future aren't going to work anymore, and your body changes. So the first thing I would suggest is going through a detox, which you would think is actually getting stuff out of your body, like, flushing your body out. It actually isn't. It's actually adding all the right nutrients back into your body, and then your body will flush itself out on its own. And then you put more and more nutrients, the right nutrients, back into it, which we'll go heavily into during Nutrition Week. But what I wanted to talk about is my diagnosis. I was 20, and I was stationed in West Virginia, Jen, which is so funny because she actually lives in West Virginia. I'm actually in Missouri right now, my home state. But when I was stationed out there, I had a PA who was horrible, to say the least. And it took 100 times going to him, and he just brushed it off every time. And it took 2 trips to the ER, one being in the base ambulance, to finally get a referral to a off-base gynecologist. And as soon as I went in, the doctor, he was so old though, it was so funny, but he automatically, when I went in, he was like, I think you have endometriosis. He's like, I want to do a laparoscopy. And I was like, what the heck are you talking about? What does that mean? So about a month later, May of 2007, I had my first laparoscopy and was diagnosed with endo. And believe it or not, even years later, multiple doctors later, still told me I did not have endometriosis. Yes, they sure did. And I'm not joking. And even after surgeries with a doctor later tried to tell me I did not have endometriosis. And if you want to think I don't, you can ask Dr. Sinervo at the CEC, who did my excision, which I love the little piece of paper I have of pathology. I actually had adenomyosis and endometriosis. I think adeno may have been causing the majority of my pain that nobody had caught, that my uterus was attacking me. So another thing about diagnosis is that you want to be careful, because with endometriosis there come other diagnoses that if you're not with a specialist or somebody who hasn't actually taken more than the 45 minutes they get during medical school, they're not going to know to look for. So what you can do as somebody who's been diagnosed with endometriosis, or somebody who thinks that you may have it, is start doing your research and only trust those resources that are actually trusted. And the way to do that is only trust peer-reviewed articles and research, and those sources that aren't funded from corporations or pharmaceuticals or anyone who's actually making money from it, pharmaceuticals or things like that. And by that I mean the Endometriosis Research Center. They are a nonprofit organization who doesn't even pay their employees. All of their money goes directly into research, trying to find a cure for us and better treatments and everything else. None of the money is given into the pharmaceuticals or people to go out and find other. It's the way other nonprofits work is a bit different. But I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying it's different. Like the Endometriosis Foundation of America, they're not bad in any means. They're just run a bit differently. And to try and contact them and get up-to-date research is quite a bit harder and a lot different. So know who you're getting your research from and your resources, and make sure they're trusted. And the person who's led the way in what you need to look for now would be Dr. Redwine, Dr. David Redwine. And also he has taught Dr. Albee and Dr. Snovo from the CEC. And, I mean, Dr. Patrick Young out of St. Louis, he's trying. I would give him a few more years. He dropped me as a patient, and I think he would be useful for people who aren't so damaged. The not so hard cases might be worth a shot to him. If you have more complicated problems, I wouldn't recommend seeing him at all. And I'm not saying anything bad about him. I'm not downgrading him at all. But as a person who went to him and he never returned my calls, and the way he treated me and acted towards me, I wouldn't recommend him to anyone who has severe problems or complications. And I only live an hour and a half away from him, and I still see or have to wait to call a doctor who's 4 states away. So you see how important it is after you do have a diagnosis to find the right doctor, and not just a specialist too. I have a nutritionist here, and she's about an hour away from me, and yes, you're probably going to have to travel. We have a disease that no one knows about, and that you just honestly have to search and find people who know and want to look outside the realm of conventional medicines, because those aren't working. And we've seen the damage that they've done. And if you haven't seen the damage, feel free to message me or to come and visit me and live a day with me, because you'll see the damage that they've done. I can't live a day without almost being in tears and in so much pain because of the damage that medicines and botched surgeries have done, because I didn't know about excision, because I was in the Navy and I had to do what they told me to do and be on Lupron for 18 months in bigger doses than anyone should ever have to take. So, I mean, my big recommendation is if you get a diagnosis of endometriosis and you're in the military, get out. Request to get out as soon as possible. You won't get the right treatment you need, and you'll probably get worse treatment that'll hurt your body more than you'll ever know. And if you do get diagnosed with endometriosis, the first thing you should do is start detoxing and start eating right, eating better. Definitely stop eating fast food, processed foods, things like that. But that'll be more on our nutrition week, and then you'll understand why, because I'll explain exactly how the hormones that are in that food contradict the hormones that are in your brain and actually cause the endometriosis in your body to grow or fluctuate and cause inflammation and pain. Other things I wanted to say is the symptoms you need to watch out for if you think you may have. Endometriosis is severe cramping with your period, pelvic pain either with your period or without, lower abdomen or back pain does commonly associate with endometriosis, going down the leg or not, diarrhea and or constipation altering, um, pain with intercourse, that's a big one. A lot of us endometriosis sufferers, we either don't have a sex life or we have an extremely painful one. So that's a big thing to think about, because that makes endometriosis not just affect us, that affects our partners, our relationships, and everything around us. A lot of endometriosis sufferers go through divorce. I myself went through divorce. I mean, I have the best partner I could ask for these days. Don't get me wrong, I wouldn't give him up for anything. But it's a huge impact on our lives. And pelvic floor physical therapy is an amazing thing, whether you have pelvic floor dysfunction or not, which is another diagnosis that you want to make sure you either have or can find out if you need or not. And once again, having a doctor who knows more about endometriosis, whether it's an MD or not. Now, there are some MDs who research the heck out of things if their patients have it, because that's just how much they care. Now, if you have a doctor like that, I recommend keeping them and taking a bunch of paperwork to them that you print off and you have. They'll, some of them will respect that and work with you, and that's the type of doctor they're supposed to be. You give them money and they give you something in return. And if they're not doing that, take your money elsewhere, because that is exactly how it works. They're not providing a service, stop giving them your money. Because all they're doing is using you and hurting you and making more money from the pharmaceutical companies, because they're just pumping you full of drugs that aren't going to help you in the long run. They're going to temporarily treat the symptoms that you have and not treat the actual disease. And that's why Dr. Redwine pushes excision so much, is because he cuts that disease out and he has such a high non-recurrence rate. Now, I had excision. Don't get me wrong, I pray to God there's no endo left in my body, and I don't necessarily think that there is. I have continued problems with my ovary and my cervix and hormones because of the damages left over from bad doctors, from bad treatments, from bad medicines, from not knowing. And that's why I do this, is because I don't want any of you to go through the 5 years of hell that I went through, of monthly and weekly going and getting injections this big, and it was a spring-loaded shot that went like this into my stomach, and it put a piece of lead, looked like a piece of lead that was Lupron and Zoladex that went in there, and it was 10.3 or whatever ones, and then the 3.1 when that didn't work 15 days later, and you don't even know, is what I'm saying. And don't go there because you don't want to know. And for the small amount of relief that some people get, it is not worth the damages that thousands of us are going through for the rest of our life. One thing that you have to remember, though, is that when you do get a diagnosis, is you have to keep hope, because unfortunately you are diagnosed with a disease that doesn't have a cure. But we are a huge, wide network of people who love and care for each other and are here for each other, trying to find better treatments and better care and a cure eventually one day for this disease. And if anybody tries to tell you that a hysterectomy or getting pregnant is a cure, please try to explain to them nicely that it isn't a cure, because endometriosis has actually been proven to be laid down in the embryonic tract, which means you are either born with it or you're not. So what I can say to you best about that is the way to fight this best is with your nutrition. What hormones you put in your body and what you don't is the best way to fight it, because endometriosis grows from hormones. It's a hormone-dependent disease. And believe it or not, everything you put into your body food-wise nowadays it has hormones in it, unless it's organic, non-genetically modified. And, you're making sure that what you're eating isn't raised from a corporation. I'll say that. And when I go into Nutrition Week, I'll probably be uploading a video just about every week, and I'll reference a lot of documentaries if anyone is interested in that, because I am actually trying to work on a book for us. My field is law, don't get me wrong, and I do plan on being a lawyer. But over the past 3 years, I have had to learn more than enough scientific and medical terms because I'm fighting for my life, and I'm going to know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about it. So when I go into a doctor's office now, or when I'm speaking to somebody in a legislative manner and they try to explain something to me and I know it's not true, when I turn around and explain a scientific manner or a pharmaceutical manner to them, they kind of look at me like, how the heck does she know that? And it's because the information is out there. You just have to dig through 20 layers of internet to get through it. The thing to remember is that, number one, excision is the main goal if you do get a diagnosis of endometriosis, because that's the only true way of actually cutting the disease out of your body. But if you can't afford, if you don't have insurance, if you're like me and you had to raise the money yourself and you're still paying it off and you had to wait a long time to get to an excision, finding a nutritionist is the second thing to do. It's very, very important. Somebody to give you enzymes to put in your body, which will give you tons of energy and make you feel a whole lot better. For me, my thyroid is messed up too because of it, because it's also a hormone related problem. Your body's not secular. It's not your ovaries one part and your bladder's another part and your brain's another part. Our whole body is connected by our blood and our veins and everything. So when one part of your body is affected by something, your entire body is going to be affected, whether you want to think that way or not. So we get to thinking that if we take a pill for this one part of our body, it's going to fix it. Well, the problem is we're not. We're treating one part of our body in a symptom, and in turn, we're probably getting some other symptoms for the other parts of our body and not actually treating anything. We're covering it up. We're masking it. So actually, if you eat the right foods and put the right minerals and supplements as well, because a lot of people, like me, I can't eat that much in one day. So supplements, I take a ton of vitamins and minerals, can help as well. Then you're putting those right things back into your body, and you're changing those signals back the way they were originally meant to be, if that makes sense. If you have any questions about that, feel free to message me on here and also email me. I don't want to make this much longer than it already is. I know I'm already over my own time limit that I put on here. um, We'll also go over an insurance week I do want to talk about, because I am one of the uninsured, which I'm sure many of us are, or the insured who have large copays that you can't afford to pay. And I want to hear from anybody who has other ideas. I know I've had to make my own ways of trying to pay for that because I haven't worked in 3 years. I do go to school, and I get money from the GI Bill for that, for being in the military. But I do want to hear your other ways for other women with endometriosis trying to find excision specialists to try and make the money for that, because I know it's really hard right now. But that's why we are doing this channel, is to raise the awareness in the gynecological community so that they hear us and understand that we want more excisionists. We don't want cauterization anymore. And we want them to understand that we know what is wrong with us and we know the way it's supposed to be treated. So we expect to be respected when we go into a doctor's office anymore. And we're not going to take any less. And from now on, when we go in there, we're no longer going to pay if that's the way we're treated. Because whenever you don't give a service at a food place or you don't give a service at a car place, you don't pay. And that's the way it should work at a doctor's office as well. And we've been through too much of the same stuff and the same cycle to keep accepting it. And that's what I offer to you guys, is that with a diagnosis like this of an incurable disease, of one that costs us thousands and thousands of dollars, and so much more. An emotional loss, a loss of work, a loss of the ability to have children, or the loss of, you have one child and then the loss of, to have more children. Like, I have one, yes, I love my daughter more than anything in the world. She's my blessing and miracle. Thank God every day for her. Now I had to have a hysterectomy due to adeno, and I can't have any more, so that is taken away from me at 26. So it's like, it's things like that that we have to face, and that the greater society doesn't understand. So make them understand. It's time to take it to their plate and drop it there. Because no longer is it worth our time and our money to sit quietly. And that's what I offer up to you. And I hope that I become a lawyer quick enough to make big enough changes. And I hope the gynecological community respects us enough to follow Dr. Redwine's works in proving that excision does work. So, if you guys have any questions, please let me know below, and I will put some links on later. I actually have a meeting I have to go to today, but I'll put some links on later below this of stuff about diagnosis that you can get to. So, hope you like, and everybody have a pain-free day.